Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Robin, and you're listening to Bowel Moments,
the podcast sharing real talk about the realities of IBD. Served on the rocks.
Hey potty people, Robin here. Alicia and I are coming up on our 3-year anniversary of our first published episode. I can't believe it. And we have published over 100 episodes, like 16 or 17,000 downloads. It's so surprising, and we're so grateful every single day that we get to do this for fun on the side. But we need you. Do you have a story to share? Do you want to share your story? We want to hear from you. If you're interested in being a guest on our show, DM me on Instagram at Bowel Moments Pod. I'm the one who handles all of our social media, so you will be talking to me. Do you know somebody with an incredible story, or somebody that you follow on social media that you want to know more about their story? Tell us about them. Even better, make an IG introduction for me. We're on the lookout for topics for the show. What do you want to know more about? What research topics are you curious about? Please let me know. Your input makes our podcast better. Thank you so much for listening. And I can't wait to hear from you. Cheers.
This week we talked to Belinda Brown. Belinda is the CEO of Crohn's Colitis New Zealand. We talked to her about her Crohn's diagnosis and what that led to. We talked to her about the work of Crohn's and Colitis New Zealand, especially their camp program for children living with inflammatory bowel disease called Camp Purple, and all the amazing sounding activities at it. And you hear me fangirl about New Zealand. Cheers!
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bowel Moments. This is Robin.
Hey, guys. This is Alicia, and we are so very excited to be joined by this guest, Belinda Brown. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Doing fine, thank you. One of the reasons I told you that I'm so very excited to have you on the show is, if people don't know this accent yet, you are from New Zealand, and New Zealand happens to be my favorite place on the planet. And so I'm really excited about the fact that you're joining us, and I'm really excited about the fact that you live in New Zealand, but also very jealous in like the nicest, kindest way possible, I promise. But before we get to know you even more, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a cup of tea because obviously it's morning time here and it's winter. And it's a kawa and lemongrass tea. So for those that don't know, kawa is a New Zealand medicinal, or it has healing properties. And it is a tree that grows here and used for lots of different things, particularly by Indigenous people or our native people, the Maori. And so I think, well, hopefully I can heal myself from the inside out.
Can't hurt.
So.
You and I talked before, and we were trying to figure out exactly like the right time to record, because it was not easy necessarily, because it's also Tuesday for you and it's a Monday for us, right? Yeah.
No, it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. Oh my God.
It's Tuesday for us, Alicia. Today is Tuesday.
Jesus. Okay, listen. Robin, what are you drinking?
Don't fall out of your chair, but I am having cider because it is not morning here and it is not winter time here. And I actually have tomorrow off work. So
good for you.
I know. What are you drinking, Alicia?
Well, as you guys witnessed, I also can't tell time, in addition to not being able to tell dates or days. And so I ran very, very quickly to the fridge and got myself a Topo Chico hard seltzer, not sponsored by. But Belinda, this is not about my complete lack of ability to tell time or remember days or dates. It is about you. So please share your IBD story with us. What brought you into our community?
I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was just before my 27th birthday. I had actually been misdiagnosed for 6 years leading into that. So I had been told I had everything else but, and it was quite a long journey, involved being told I had polycystic ovaries, ovarian cysts, IBS. And at one point I was also told that I had pelvic inflammatory disease, or which is also known as chlamydia. That was not the case. I had an abscess that had ruptured on the wall of my bowel and had soaked through my uterine wall and discharged out vaginally. Sorry for those, but I'll just give you a heads up. I tend to overshare. And if you probably don't like hearing about poop and those sorts of things, now's the time to switch off.
I was going to say, Belinda, they are not listening to this show, ma'am. They are not. They tuned out long ago.
So, so I was told that I had chlamydia and I was in and I was treated. And from that point, I started losing weight and I lost 20 kgs. I don't know what that is in pounds, but I lost 20 kgs in 2 months. And so I dropped down to quite a small size. I call it my lollipop phase because I had a bit of a stick body and a big head like a lollipop. And so, I was, the moment I was diagnosed, they said, you need to have surgery. There's no other option. And so, I went straight in and had 30 centimeters removed of my small intestine. And then everything was going well. I thought, I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I've had surgery, buried my head in the sand, was non-compliant with my medication as you are in your 20s. I just wanted to go out and have fun, and I got pregnant and I had a baby, and then I got pregnant again with my second pregnancy and I lost it. And so I thought, oh, okay, this is a bit weird. Kind of thought, this is probably my medication. So took myself off my medication at no advice at all from medical professionals, which is a big no-no. Should always involve medical professionals in that conversation. But I took myself off. And then I got pregnant again and lost it the second time. And at that point, I was starting to have little niggles again. And I was thinking, oh, this is my Crohn's. And they kept saying, no, your bloods are fine. Everything looks fine. No, it's not your Crohn's. And so I went in for a little bit of gynae surgery just to figure out what was going on. And that's when I was told that my abdomen was full of scar tissue from the previous surgery and fistula that had grown in my stomach, and that the niggles I was having, unfortunately, was my Crohn's disease, and that I needed to have some more surgery around that, and that unfortunately I couldn't conceive any more children naturally, that my fallopian tubes were tied up in a big mess. So so that was like, okay, so I went in and I had another bowel resection and I had another 30 centimeters removed. And then, I was pretty good and I was really compliant with my medication after that. I tried different degrees of medication. So I've been on the azathioprines, the adalimumab. I tried mercaptopurine, sort of failed all of these things. And then recently developed a perianal fistula, just a very small one. And then started having bowel obstructions continually. And I've since been told that my surgery, where they'd done the connection, it just got a fibrotic stricture there. And so I then went in and I just recently this year had another 10 centimeters removed. But that was after doing 7 months on a predominantly liquid diet. So that involved Ensure, eggs, noodles, soup, smoothies, anything liquid, which 7 months is a long time, and it really affects your mental health because, of course, everything that goes in liquid comes out liquid. So I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk my dog. I'd walk 100 meters and I'd have an accident, and it just became really, I guess, debilitating for me mentally. And so, I sort of went and had a chat with the doctors, and then they said, let's whip out some more bowel and get it over and done with. So, and now I'm back to eating normally, although, it's taken a little bit of a mental process around that, because when you are having obstructions and you stop yourself from eating real food, you then, every time you put something in your mouth, you think, oh, this is going to obstruct. Am I going to have an issue? So, I sort of stopped. I'm back to eating normally now, so, which I'm grateful for. So, and feeling healthy and fine. And my fistula appears to be getting smaller. So, all good news.
Wow. I mean, this is also where I sometimes wish we used the video, because definitely Robin and I were reacting to your story. Just to be so dismissed for so long is very, very, very frustrating, and unfortunately is not necessarily uncommon, but doesn't make it.
I was going to say, you do need to remember that we are in New Zealand, so we are behind the 8 ball with a lot of OECD countries. So we don't have the medication. We've only just recently, in the last couple of years, gained access to ustekinumab and vedolizumab. We never had them. Like, they were here, but they weren't funded. And so we've only recently gained access to those. And you also got to remember, this is almost 30 years ago. and they didn't even have MRIs when I was going through my diagnosis. So, I think I had a nasal gastric barium x-ray to diagnose where it was in my small bowel and a CT scan. And then when they realized, because when I had that abscess that ruptured, it actually put a hole in the wall of my bowel and it grew out and it grew a little fistula that grabbed my kidney, my ovary, everything. It stuck it all together in a big mess. I was actually undergoing physiotherapy for my back because I thought I'd done something to my back. And when I went in, they said, "Oh, your back, your kidney on the right hand side is only functioning at 15%." So I had to have all these CT scans and everything else. So I was incredibly lucky that it was caught when it was. And I was so very, very sick. And really, to be honest, the only reason I was caught was because I went to a first aid course and they ask you as part of the first aid course to take your pulse so you know what the normal beats per minute is, which is around 80, right? I was beating around 160 beats a minute. And I said to the lady there, "I think there's something wrong. I can count, it's like I've got a double heartbeat." And she had a feel and she goes, "Oh, you're right." Because initially she said, "Oh, you're doing it wrong." And then "Oh no, you're right. So I think you should actually have a chat with your doctor." And the next day I went in and saw my doctor. And the first thing my GP said was, "Hey, you're tachycardic, get on the bed." And then she looked at the size of me and got a huge shock. And she could actually feel that fistula when she was feeling around my tummy. And she said, "Oh, I think you should go to the hospital." But at that point, I'd lost all faith in the hospital system. And I was like, I don't really want to go. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm kind of over it. And she said, "So long as you pay to get an ultrasound done privately today, I'll let you go. Otherwise, I'm not letting you go." And so, yeah, I paid and I got the diagnosis privately. But the tools weren't there for them to diagnose as well as they are now. And the biggest problem I had was that my bloods continued to show that I was fine up until those last couple before I had the surgery. All my bloods said I was perfect continually. So it's a bit, I don't blame the medical professionals at all now. I used to. Initially, I was very angry, but knowing what I know now, I don't blame them. They can only use the tools that they're given. And if they're not given top of the line tools, it's going to make it harder for them to diagnose. So,
Well, and unfortunately, Robin, the her blood coming out fine sounds very familiar. Robin's blood is a big fat liar.
Yes, that's I've said on the show many times. I don't trust my blood work. My blood is a liar.
Yeah. So
I think my gastros have said, and you could not pre-order better bloods. Like they would almost say, "This is the perfect blood test," and that's what I would come in at every time.
that is wild. It's wild to think that your blood is just like, cool, we're going to pretend that nothing is wrong. Like, especially when you say like your kidney is functioning at like such little percent, all these things, like everything is so affected. Like, how is this not showing up in blood work? Wow, you are a medical miracle, kind of.
No, yeah, I think I don't
Maybe a
like
medical
that.
anomaly? Maybe that's the
Yeah,
better word.
maybe. Yeah, I like to say I'm always outside the box. I never like to conform to norm, and I always like to be outside that square.
I say that my body did not read your medical textbook.
Absolutely.
So it's not going to behave how your medical textbook says it should behave.
All right. So you were diagnosed when you were 26. Not a lot of treatment options, not a lot of sort of things happening, perhaps treatment wise or sort of, understanding wise in New Zealand at that time.
No, there was support groups were
Okay.
supporting patients. CCNZ didn't exist because this was 2002. So
Okay.
Crohn's and Colitis New Zealand wasn't formed until 2010, but there was a support group in my local region, which was Auckland. And I did find, and I was lucky. Well, I don't know if you call it lucky. My aunt was diagnosed exactly 1 week prior to me and underwent the exact same surgery 1 week prior to me, had the exact same amount of bowel removed, everything 1 week prior to me. So it was good because I based my recovery off her. I went, she's older than me. So theoretically, I should be able to beat her. I've got to get out of hospital before her. So I was up doing laps of the ward as soon as I could to try and beat her, because I was like, I have to be home before her. I'm younger. I should be home before her. And that's what I had this goal in my mind to do. But yeah, I don't know that I was lucky having her, but it was certainly nice to have someone that if I felt like I was struggling, I could go to and chat with her, if you know, or vice versa, you know, that she still does now. Like, she rings me up every now and then when she's having issues, and she'll have a chat with me and stuff like that. So it's nice to have that solidarity, I guess, or that companionship, but in a weird way, a little eclectic way.
Yeah, I'm sure we don't wish this upon anybody, but it's nice to have like a direct relative that has it, so you do have somebody to talk to. Talk to us a little bit more about Crohn's and Colitis New Zealand. You said it was formed in 2010. How did it get started? Tell us just kind of, if you don't mind giving us kind of the like history, brief history. Obviously, I don't expect you to know absolutely everything.
So Crohn's and Colitis New Zealand was formed out of the Wellington Support Group back in February 2010. And it was formed by the coordinator then, which is Brian Poole. And Brian is a patient himself. He's an amazing man, and he started it with a very small group of volunteers, and they got a board together, and they all worked super hard on so many things. They decided to run a camp called Camp Purple, which started in 2015. And I was asked after that camp to join the board as a volunteer. So I volunteered on the board for 5 years before joining them as their CEO. But prior to that, yeah, I was on their board and was involved in some of the decisions and things like that. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, we do a lot of different things. So Crohn's and Colitis New Zealand have what we call an I Can't Wait card, which is a card to gain access to toilets that we give out free to anyone with a medical condition, not just with Crohn's and colitis. We also have, as part of the I Can't Wait campaign, we have stickers that we ask businesses to stick on their windows saying that they support the card there, and we can go in and use their toilets there, because in New Zealand we don't have Ali's Law. I wish we did have Ali's Law, and we did try to get that passed through our ambassador, Nicole Thornton. Nicole presented a petition to Parliament to get that passed. Unfortunately, that wasn't passed, but we were asked to work with the retail sector. And so, yeah, we're asking those businesses that are happy to allow us to use their toilets to put up a sticker. We also have, along with the camps, we run a parent and caregivers seminar. We also have an experience camp for a day for those younger campers who are a little bit too young to come to camp or a little bit too nervous to come to camp for a full week. We also have a young adult seminar called the Living with IBD, and that's aged from 18 upwards and to about 40. And it's addressing those things that are important in those age ranges, things like pregnancy, fertility, studying with IBD, just giving you the basic outlines of IBD. So going through the basics again, because obviously some of these 18-year-olds are coming out of mum and dad's care, and they need to know a little bit about the disease themselves because they're going off to study at university. And yeah, so it talks about all those sorts of things. Obviously, we had the We Can't Wait campaign, which was to get ustekinumab and vedolizumab funded. Well, initially just ustekinumab. We just happened to get vedolizumab funded as well, which was great. So we presented Parliament with a petition of over 30,000 signatures to get that funded. And while they didn't fund it based on that petition, it certainly put pressure on some of our medication agency here, which is called Pharmac. So yeah, there was a bunch of medications they funded, not just ours. So that was great. We also have 13 support groups throughout New Zealand that we support financially. So they're run by either IBD patients or parents of IBD patients or someone that just wants to help out and wants to, and they go from being casual catch-ups of coffees, or they might be more formal catch-ups with speakers and what have you. I'm just trying to think what else. Oh, we also provide a handbook for people with IBD. So it's called Living with IBD. And it is all the photos in that handbook, which we have on our website. All the photos in that handbook are New Zealanders with IBD. So we've used pictures from the camp. We've used pictures that patients sent in to us. So every person in that book, apart from one, I think, has IBD. I mean, obviously there's family pictures where maybe it's just the one person in that picture that has IBD, but there's a dietitian in there, a well-known dietitian called Catherine Wall, and she's, as far as I know, the only one that's in there that doesn't have IBD. So we distribute that to all new patients or any patient or family member or anyone that wants to learn more about IBD. So that's just a little bit about what we do. So I might add, we do all of this with a volunteer board and one employee.
That was actually going to be my statement, is that that's really remarkable considering you are the only employee of the organization and everybody else is a volunteer. So that's incredible. And especially 13 support groups for not a very large place, and, the one thing I remember and loved, frankly, about New Zealand is that there's so many places where there's hardly any people. And, so that is really, really cool to hear about. I mean, here in the United States, inflammatory bowel disease went from being like, only 1.5 million, only quote unquote people have it, to like 3 million. So like we doubled from the one time they counted it to the next time they counted it, which I don't remember what the distance is there. I'm curious about like how common is this in New Zealand? And are you seeing, like other places, are you seeing an uptick in people being diagnosed?
So in New Zealand, we have one of the highest incident rates in the world. So I think we've got like the third highest, next to America and I think it's Germany or somewhere in Europe. But yeah, we've got one of the third highest rates of the world. Then we're not really sure why. We don't have firm numbers, unfortunately. There is no coding in our healthcare system for IBD, and we're looking at how we can get more firmer numbers around that. There's been some research done into that now, but yeah, we've estimated, this was back in 2017, we estimated there was 20,792 people in New Zealand with IBD, but that it was growing at a rate of 5% per year. And I think that recent figures are showing an indication of around 32,000 now. So it is huge. I don't know why that is. I wish I did. I think if we all knew why it was happening, there'd be a cure, wouldn't there? Or there'd be one treatment for one size fits all sort of thing. But unfortunately, yeah, I'm not sure why it's so prevalent here, but it is. And with I think we've also estimated that 1 in 5 is a child as well with IBD. So
that's incredible for such a small place. So that's a lot of people to be diagnosed.
Just so you know, the population in New Zealand is only 5.124 million.
And I wish it could be 2 more people with me and my husband coming there. Oh, okay. Robin can come too. All right. 4 more people and 3 dogs. Just going to put that out there too, because they're going to come too. Yeah, that's really incredible. Are you seeing it primarily in people of more of a Caucasian descent? Is it also coming up more frequently in like the more indigenous populations as well? Like, is there a breakdown of kind of the race of the people?
There's no breakdowns yet, but I do know that there are more and more Pacifica and Maori people that are presenting with it. Yeah. And maybe that is coming from their European side of their heritage. I'm not sure, but a lot of the kids at camp, and that's where I look, are of European descent, that I have noticed there's more and more Pacifica, Indian, those sorts of races coming through. So, which is really sad.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, and definitely one of the things I think we've talked about and heard about and sort of seen as they look at this too, is that there's in some places where there's more adoption of a more Western diet as well, Western quote unquote diet, that's also where they see kind of a greater uptick of people showing signs of inflammatory bowel disease. But then you sort of wonder, is that because of the diet, or is that because there's influx of people from Western backgrounds or, sort of Caucasian European backgrounds that are going to those places? I don't know. It's very quirky, this whole, like, why are there upticks in this?
Or is it that the Western diet is just bringing out the symptoms? That's another thing to throw out there too, just the change in diet generally, is it creating more symptoms? I don't know. And the trouble is that I've found is no one size fits all. So I speak at the Auckland University at the School of Pharmacy, and we talk to pharmacists that are coming through their training. And I do it with another lady, and I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her name. That's Kate Montgomery, and she has a ostomy, and we're completely chalk and cheese. So she's tall, she's skinny, she's lean, she very, very mindful about what she puts in her mouth, and, mindful about doing yoga and training. And she's very, very good at all those sorts of things. Whereas I'm not so good at it. And I'm a bit dumpier and, a bit shorter and, those sorts of things. So we're chalk and cheese when we talk. She was diagnosed very quickly. Ours took a long time. So we're very, very different. But it just goes to show you that she still has issues just off and on, despite, everything she does. And she's very mindful of what she eats, whereas I still have issues and I'm not so mindful about what I eat. I am learning to be a little bit more mindful after my last surgery. But prior to that, I'd eat pizza and I'd eat, all sorts of rubbish. Whereas
That's
now
not
I'm a
rubbish.
little bit more mindful.
Pizza is not rubbish. You take that back right now, Belinda.
Listen.
You take that back.
I was going to say pizza and tacos are the world's most perfect food right there. Like you've got
Tacos
everything.
are nice. Yeah, tacos are good. Pizza,
Can't believe you just said
maybe
that.
not so much the ones that I like, because they're,
Okay.
like ham, cheese, pineapple. There's no vegetables on them. There's no,
This is a hill I will die on, Alicia. I'm just letting you know right now. Somebody who's been on the show a lot, Stacey Collins, she called me one time, like, I don't know, and she's a dietitian. And so I was like, I'm telling you right now, eat pizza. It is like my rescue food. Because if things are going on there that I don't know what I can eat, like I don't want my food to cause me pain, I don't want to have after effects after it, pizza is going to be what I eat because I know I can tolerate it. I know my body's going to process it. I know I'm getting dairy, veggies, protein, all of those things. So, you just can't disparage pizza like that on this show, Belinda. You just can't.
No, it's comfort, right? So my comfort food is cereal. When I'm feeling like that, I'll turn to cereal. So that's probably high in sugar, high in whatever else that you're not meant to eat, but I'm still getting the dairy or whatever with it, and maybe some fruit. But I guess we have comfort foods, and that's one thing. And I guess we'll get into it a bit later. But with the diets with our kids at camp, where one of the questions we ask them is, what is the comfort food like? If they aren't feeling well, what is their go-to food? Is it spaghetti on toast, which is different to spaghetti over there? Is it toast? Is it just a piece of bread? Is it cereal? And we will have those supplies on hand for the kids so that when they're not feeling so well, because I just work on the theory that, right, if they're eating something, it's better than eating nothing. So if they're having cereal for dinner, I don't care. They're only there for a week and I want to make sure they enjoy camp and get the best out of it. So if they're not feeling well, I'll do anything to accommodate them eating. So I guess that's what we do as patients too. When we're not feeling well, we have go-to things.
Frankly, when we're talking about just in general, fed is better than not,
Yes.
So especially for kids at camp that are so active. Speaking of camp, let's talk about camp. Robin and I both are huge fans of camp. And I know, Belinda, already having talked to you, you are a huge fan of camp as well. So let's talk about, is Camp Purple is the camp that you guys put on. Tell us all about it.
So I guess I'll start how my journey started with Camp Purple. And that was, I was in a really dark place. It was just before or just after my second surgery, and I hadn't bounced back quite as quick as I had done on the previous surgery. So I was feeling quite dark, I guess is the word you want to use. I actually went through the process of, and maybe we should just do a little disclaimer here, this does touch on suicide a little bit. I was in a really dark place to the point where I used to sit on my back doorstep crying, planning how I was going to end my life, because I'd watch my daughter running around the backyard and I would think she deserves someone that can be out there with her, and I don't physically have the energy. I'm a bad mother. She deserves better than me. All those sorts of things start to come up. Sorry, I'm just swelling up a little bit. But so those sorts of things came up for me, and I was very lucky. I had a team that recognized what was going on and they got me help. And obviously I found other things to do with my daughter other than kicking a ball. So we watched movies and had, junk food on the couch together, watching a movie. That was our thing, So, but when I heard about camp for the first time, it was through Dr. Richard Stein, who is now our chairman, but he was the chair of the Northwest chapter of Crohn's and Colitis Foundation in America. And he used to run Camp Oasis over there. And so he sort of brought it to the board at the time, which I wasn't part of, and said, let's run this camp. And when I heard about it, I thought, oh my God, I've been sitting here worrying about my own issues, and I'd never once thought about a kid having this disease. And that broke my heart, because I sat there and I thought, here I am struggling as a 30-something-year-old woman, and all these kids want to do is just fit in and be normal, and they're not, and they're having to deal with these issues that I'm dealing with as a 30-something-year-old woman, and they're dealing with them at that age. And that broke my heart. So I made it a mission to raise funds for camp that year. And I put on a purple tutu and a purple t-shirt, and I roped in two of my friends, and we walked a fun run across Auckland, which is called the Ports of Auckland round the bays. And so we had blazoned across the front of our t-shirts, never trust a fart. And we walked during this fun run with that on, and got loads of comments, obviously, and loads of questions. But I led the fundraising tally for such a long time that it brought it to the forefront of Ports of Auckland, and they then went and sponsored camp. I think they gave them like $20,000 to help put the camp on. And so, and that's how camp began. So camp is for kids aged between 9 to 17 years of age. It is 1 week in January. Obviously, it's a summer camp over here. We move it around the three main centres of New Zealand, which is Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch. So we do one camp a year, but rotated every year around those three centres, just to allow, I guess, those first-time campers the opportunity to come to camp and feel safe, that mum and dad are just a phone call away if they really need them. And also for the parents to feel comfortable. They're not sending their kid on a plane across the country. They're just within driving distance, and they feel a little bit more comfortable about sending their kids to camp. So initially the parents sent us out as part of the program, but we've since separated that away and made it a standalone event. But the kids just get to come to camp for a week, have fun, be normal. So that the first day they go through a check-in, and one of the things they do is a diet check-in. So they check that their diet hasn't changed. They bring their insures to camp if they're on EEN, and they'll all be taken off them and put into the fridge, and they'll be given out to them at whatever time it needs to be given out to them. Our medical team takes all their medication off them. They have a one-on-one appointment with the medical team, and they hand over all their meds, and basically they're called up in the morning or whenever it is that they take their meds, and here's your medication, but they're lining up with all the other kids. So it kind of normalizes it, the normalization of taking the medications and those sorts of things. But recent years, we've introduced a psychologist as well that comes to camp, and they run sessions with the kids as part of the activity rotations. And it's just about really normalizing talking about IBD, and it's okay to say that it sucks from time to time having IBD, and unpacking that in a group setting. And the kids, I might add, are never pressured to take part in it. Like if they want to sit back and not take part in it, that's fine. But 9 out of 10 of them, or 9.9 out of 10 of them, they all just take part in it. Once they get in that group setting, they all just take part. And it's amazing to watch them sort of bloom and feel normal for, 5 minutes. So we have all sorts of other activities we do at camp. Like they do normal camp activities like kayaking or raft building. And we also do an away day from camp. So the kids leave the camp for the day, and we do tell them all sorts of stories about where they might be going. We never tell them the truth. So I think the first year we told them they were going to the frozen food section of the supermarket. In actual fact, we took them to Antarctica Centre in Christchurch. The next year we told them they were going to bake bread at the supermarket, and I even went as far as having the bus pull over in front of the supermarket, and I was standing there with a hairnet on, saying to them on a group call, I'm really sorry, they don't have enough hairnets for all of us. You need to go round the corner. We just park up, we'll have morning tea, and then I'll sort this issue. And we pulled up in front of the Wellington Zoo. I think the best story has to be at the Christchurch camp, which was last year. where we told them that they were going to the sewage pond and that they were going to see how sewage got processed, and that they would each be able to take a little sample of water home with them, and they would be able to drink that. It would be that pure they could drink it.
I am sorry to interrupt you, but this is amazing, but also just disgustingly appropriate for people with IBD. These are tears of laughter right now because this is amazing. Yeah. But they have to be, I mean, they have to know by now that, I mean, the new campers maybe not.
They know. So they know. They do know something. They know not to believe what we're saying, but they don't know. And that half of the fun is they're all Googling going, what's within distance? And they're all coming up to me. Are we going here? Are we going there? And I said, no, I've told you where we're going. We're going to the sewage pond. Do you not believe me? And I'd just stand there with a straight face and say it. And then, we pulled up that year to, we went what they call blow karting and drift karting. So they're like windsurfers on wheels. And then drift karting is like little trike things, which they tried to get me to do because I'm a bit of a motorsport enthusiast, but I could not get them to drift for me. But it was certainly fun. But the kids were like, oh, we knew. They all say we knew, but they had no idea.
As someone who also does camps, I have to be completely honest with you, Belinda, and say the blow karting and drift karting just sounds like a risk management nightmare.
No, they have their own. So we go to a venue and they have their own health and safety. So we're not too worried about that. We just sort of, they've all signed their forms. Here they go.
Perfect. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Well, the whitewater rafting was great, but we didn't lie to them about that one because the whitewater rafting, I had to actually get all the parents to sign their forms. And so, yes, I didn't end up spinning a tail on that, but that was great. And it certainly taught me a lot. Like I ended up at the end of it, you jump in the rapids with your life jacket on, you go down. And I realized I thought I was a sort of relatively okay, I could swim to save myself type person. No, I was floating down the current out into the big pond where you can't touch the bottom. And I ended up, someone put the oar out and grabbed me. So yeah, it's all a bit of fun. It's all about torturing Camp Mum too. That's where affectionately I got the name Camp Mum. And that first year, I think that first year at camp really changed me as a person because I thought that I didn't feel alone. And I realized when I got there and I met all these people that were just like me. Well, not all of them are just like me. I shouldn't say that. We've all got the same disease. I'm sure they don't want to be known as just like me. They all think I'm a little bit weird when I turn up to camp in a purple tutu. But yeah, I realized how alone I actually had felt, which was kind of sad, but kind of good at the same time that I'd found these people. But that first year, we have a video that's floating around of that first year, and the kids were watching it, and they're all sitting in a circle. And I remember watching it and thinking, because they asked the kids afterwards, what are you getting out of camp? And the kids were putting their hand up and they were answering all these questions. And I thought, this is so good. They're actually getting what's meant to come out of camp. They're all saying, oh, I don't feel so alone. I didn't know anyone with IBD before. Now I do. It was just great. And I watched all of them and I started to well up and get a little bit teary, which is now what is affectionately known as a Belinda moment at camp. And I sort of pulled my hat down and stuff. But one of my campers saw me and she put her hand up and she said, it's amazing all these volunteers are giving up a week of their time to be here with us and really grateful for that. And I know you all probably think you've got the best leader, but our leader, she's just, and I never heard another word. I burst into tears and all of my kids that year came running up and gave me a massive group hug in front of everyone. Yeah. And that was for me, it was like that solidified I have to go to camp every year. And my husband even says now, if there wasn't Camp Purple, I don't know if Belinda would be here with us. He said Camp Purple saved her. And I attribute those kids to saving me that first year. So yeah, so it's definitely life-changing for everyone involved. And there are, like I spoke to you before, Robin, there's either camp people or there's non-camp people. I'm definitely a camp person and I'm definitely a camp mum. I'm bossy. I've got my whistle. I've got my tutu. I've got I've got the loud voice. I don't need the megaphone.
Me either. I do not need the megaphone.
I was about to say, oh, Robin, she's one of yours.
I do get into the swing of camp. And obviously this year I took it. I like to push boundaries, and this year I really pushed my own boundaries. So yeah, swimming with eels was not on the plan.
Swimming with eels?
Yes. So we did what we call CEO challenges, and every day I would come up with a different challenge. And if we got a set amount donated, I would undertake that challenge. So one of them was, for every $100 donated, I get a cream pie in the face. So the kids would stand with a plate and they'd pass it around like musical chairs. And then when the music stopped, that kid would get to cream pie me in the face. I actually ended up having to have my eyes washed out because my eyes were burning from the cream. And it took about 3 or 4 hair washes to get the rancid smell of cream out of my hair. But yes, I did that. There was a number of other things I did. I also roped in our chair, and initially I said I was going to dye his moustache purple. And every year he does this. We have a trivia night and he helps the kids. He's meant to be my cheat spotter. And every year he helps the kids. And again, I caught him. So I said, right, you're getting your hair dyed purple as well. So we did his hair and his moustache, and we have a Q&A session where the kids can put anonymous questions in the box and the medical team answer them. And he walked in with purple hair and a purple moustache. So yes, I rope other people in. But yes, one of them was I think it was $500. If we got $500, I'd get into the pond with the eels. And if we got 505, Richard would join me. So we definitely got over 505. Both of us got in and we sunk up to our knees in mud, and the mud stinks. Kids lost shoes in there, because they lost their Crocs and stuff like that because, they just got stuck in the mud. And the kids were down there for 20 minutes before I went down there, feeding the eels the leftover dinner, racking them up. And so all I could see was these big black, they were massive, coming up to the surface of eels eating the bread and stuff. And I had to get in the pond. And then they started playing the Jaws music. I had all sorts, they were throwing rocks in. And I have like a fear of water that I cannot see my feet in, and certainly don't like. Yes, it's lovely to look at aquariums and stuff, but I don't want to be part of that aquarium. So yeah, so it was a huge, huge sacrifice. I got up to probably about my hips, and Dr. Stein lost his footing and grabbed hold of me and dunked me right down to up to my chest level. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. I'm out. I was gone. So yeah.
That is very brave of you. I am dying. No, thank you.
No. So the worst thing was I got out of there. I walked around the corner of the building and I actually had a massive panic attack. So the kids never saw that, but they all got ushered off. Belinda's done her challenge, off you go. And I was around I couldn't breathe properly. And the nurse was standing in front of me going, breathe, breathe. Richard was fine, of course. He'd taken days of winding me up, of saying, well, did you know that people have been bitten by eels? And he was showing me newspaper articles. I was like, please stop.
Richard, God. So, but okay, what are you going to do to top that though? You've done this to yourself.
I know. Apparently, and the feedback forms from camp, they all love the CEO challenges. So I think it's going to be an ongoing thing. So I think this year, yeah. And I know some of our volunteers, we've got 2 guys on our committee that were part of the instigators this year. So we had Josh and Mark. And Josh was distracting me with the piddly little water gun when Mark had gone and got the fire hose out and squirted me with the fire hose. So yeah, it's just standard. Let's water balloon Belinda.
Feel like if you're bringing this back because it got such good feedback that you need to raise those fundraising minimums. You need to be $750 or $1,000. Absolutely.
I'm not swimming with the eels for $500 this time.
No. Which, when you said $500, I was like, no, ma'am, that's like a $2,500 at least.
Yeah. So I think we weren't sure the response we would get, so we kind of went low to begin with, and then so I think this time around it will definitely be more. I'm not swimming with eels for $500.
One of the things I thought was really cool, because I watched your camp video on your website, and that was so fun to watch. I loved the fact that you bring in your own chef, because you recognize that there are lots of diets for, do you not do that? Based on your face, you don't do that anymore?
So we did that 1 year based on the campground that we had. The kitchens work with us.
Great.
So a lot of the kitchens at the other campgrounds work with us. It was just that particular year we brought in a chef, which the kids loved. There were lots of comments from some of the volunteers going, I've never eaten so healthy. So
no pizza. No pizza, Robin.
No pizza. I also wanted to say too, all of it is completely free for the kids. Like, we fly them from around New Zealand. Everything's paid for. It's all done through raising funds for these kids to be able to experience this, because we recognize that we don't want kids missing out because, they can't afford to, and because those are the ones that really need it. We're also mindful that families have been through a lot and they can't always afford this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I love that you make it accessible for everybody. And I think it's kind of a nice equalizer as well. Then you don't, nobody has to ask for help, which is kind of nice as well, especially for the folks that need it. The other comment I had for you before we started recording is that I'm going to link to your video, because it was a delight to watch, because it looks like it's so much fun at that camp. But also there's a little girl named Nicole in there that is not so little any longer, you were telling me, but that she is an absolute star. And I'm surprised she doesn't have your job yet, but I'll give her time, because I'm guessing she's gunning for it, because her name is Nicole, and she was just darling and just so charismatic that I was like, bring Nicole back. Not that the other people on there were not amazing. Yeah. She's just a very charismatic little child.
She's got a lot of sass. Well, she did have when she was younger. She's lovely. She's a very good matchmaker. She's match-made a couple of our volunteers.
Amazing.
But also, she's now studying to be a nurse, which is really cool. Obviously, she petitioned Parliament at 12 years old to recognise the I Can't Wait card, or to actually introduce Ellie's Law in New Zealand. So she's met Alison Bain. Yeah, she's a little pocket rocket, and obviously now she's our ambassador, and she's on our board as well. So she sits on our board as a co-opted board member. So yeah, she's a little pocket rocket, and she's just recently gone and represented New Zealand in Europe at the EFCA General Assembly. That's the European Federation of Crohn's and Colitis Association, and she represented us there at their General Assembly. So yeah.
Awesome. It sounds like she's going to make an amazing nurse.
She's adorable, is Nicole. She's a rock star. Yeah. And one of the reasons why, I do what I do. So.
And there's so many, which is terrible and wonderful all at the same time. Yeah.
I think I had one of the volunteers, because I've had several volunteers now come through that were ex-campers. So they're now coming back as volunteers, which is really exciting to see them giving back to the community. But one of them said this year she pulled up a photo of the camp that she went to in Wellington with us, and she was showing her campers. I was like, look, this is Belinda back in whenever, and she was showing us. And she showed me the photo, and I went, oh yeah, and I started naming all the kids, and she said to me, I can't believe you remember all their names and you know what they're doing now, because I'm still in contact with them. I still message them. I still talk to them occasionally and say, hey, how's things going, and check in and stuff like that. And she was amazed. Like, she said, I can't believe that that one's had a baby and that one's doing this and that one.
Do you have a favorite camp location?
No, I like them for all different reasons, because they all offer different opportunities. So like the Christchurch camp has very different activities to the Auckland camp. The Auckland camp has a lot of height-based activities, which means a lot of the kids can't take part in some of them because they're scared of heights and stuff. So I try to make sure there's activities that aren't just height-based. The Wellington one, again, it's a different camp atmosphere because there are other camps in there with us. So yes, they're all very different in their own right. And I certainly like the sleeping arrangements in Wellington because they're single beds, right? Instead of bunk beds. Mm-hmm. When I go to the Auckland one, it's a wooden bunk bed. There's 12 of us in the room. It's summer. It gets incredibly hot and you're sleeping on a foam mattress that feels like that.
Mhm.
thin, very thin, very thin. So yeah, I certainly like them for different aspects. So they all bring each their own quality. So we do play this
Yep.
really cool game at camp for particularly the people that are leaving. It's called Rock, Stick, Leave. And the idea is what rocked your world at camp? What will stick with you from camp? And what will you leave behind? So there's been some amazing answers like leaving behind anxieties and fears and the mosquitoes or the ants, that sorts of things. But just listening to what's really rocked their worlds at camp, what we're doing right. It's so good to hear that we're having such an impact on these kids, which, just drives me to do it every year, keeps the passion going every year to do it.
Oh, I love that. Robin's writing it down. I can see it.
Go on our website, look at it, donate. If we've got donation links all on our websites, it's an incredible experience for these kids and for the volunteers. And I can't rate it highly enough. As my husband says, he doesn't know where he'd be without it. And he's not a touchy-feely talk about his feelings type guy. And for him to say that, and he's not said that to me, he said it to parents of campers that we know personally. He said it to them and said, if it wasn't for camp, I don't know where Belinda would be. So it's a huge lifeline. And I think if you've got a camp in your area, whether you're in New Zealand, Australia, they do Camp Fearless, they do Camp Oasis. In America, they do, in Canada, they've got Camp Got to Go. So wherever you are, I strongly recommend if you're of age to go along and try it, even if it's just once. It's so cool just connecting with people that get you better than anyone else. I mean, other people that don't have it, they can get you, but they don't get the whole ins and outs of you and why you dash off to the toilet. You don't have to explain that at camp.
Well, and if you're an adult living with these diseases, you can volunteer. And if you're a healthcare professional that's interested, you can volunteer as well. And I think, like you said, the experience of the adults that are helping with camp is just as amazing as for the kids. And even kids, if you're not a camp person, which again, I am not a camp person. I mean, honestly, there's other kids that go that are not camp people. And it just, because of the atmosphere that you're in, it makes it a different experience than just having to go be miserable in a tent.
There's another video out there called 3-Ply. And if you put on YouTube 3-Ply and rickshaw, it's about a team of our volunteers who volunteered to raise funds for camp and race a rickshaw across India. And that came out, they all have Crohn's, and that came out of camp.
Oh,
and the reason why it came out is because at the Q&A night, some kid put in the box, doesn't mean because I have IBD, I can't travel. And that broke that volunteer's heart, one of those volunteers. And she then roped in 2 others to do it with her. And they raised $26,000 for camp that year. Yeah. And just to show the kids that you can travel. So, yeah.
That's super cool. Belinda, I do want to say thank you very much for opening up about your struggles with, feeling like you wanted to die by suicide. I mean, that is unfortunately a reality of living with a chronic illness, is that these things are common. So I want to thank you for that. That's very brave. And I know it's not easy to talk about. So thank you.
I just want to add a tagline on that. I know it isn't easy to talk about, and it is hard for me to talk about it. As you know, obviously I welled up and I got emotional, but I know that it's important, and I just want people out there to know that when they're struggling, there are people like me that do talk about it because we want to speak for you, because we know that it's so important to be raised. It's an issue that needs to be raised, is that IBD affects so much more than your body. It affects your mental health, and it's so important that it gets raised. And it's so, even though it's hard for me to speak, I know it's important that I speak, because I know there's so many people out there that can't speak, and I understand that. I was in that place, and if you'd asked me 10 years ago if I would have been standing in New Zealand Parliament telling people about how I'd thought about committing suicide, I would have said there's no way I would have done that. Absolutely no way. But I think it's important that it does get raised at that level so people understand, because if no one talks about it, nothing changes.
And it really helps to destigmatize it. I mean, there is still, people think that there's something very shameful about that, and it's not. There's nothing shameful about this. People go through periods of darkness, and this is potentially a part of that darkness, and it is. Absolutely. And that is the time when you need help, but it's also the most difficult time to ask for help. And so it is super important that people are willing to talk about their experiences getting through it. and helping people
Yeah.
really see that there can be light at the end of the tunnel, and that, you know, when you're sitting in the darkness, that there is a little spark somewhere that you got to aim for, because it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Belinda, thank you so, so much for being on the show. This has been a delightful conversation, and I have loved getting to know you better, especially since we're kindred camp people. But it's time for me to ask you the last question. What is the one thing that you want the IBD community to know?
I kind of just touched on it. I want you all to know that IBD can be an isolating disease, and at times it can really affect your mental health. But, you know, for those of you that are struggling at the moment, or you're in a dark place, I want you to know there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's there, and that all you can't see it. That's all. All you need to do is to reach out, and others will help guide you through it. And I think that's important to remember, whether it's a medical professional, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's an advocacy group, we're all here to help you through it.
It reminds me of and I don't remember the name of the town. Shoot, there's a place where there's caves and you go in and there's the little worms from the ceiling that are like a tiny little pinprick of light that's way up there. So
Waitomo.
yes.
Waitomo Cave. Yeah.
Look at all those tiny little points of light. Like, that's just something to reach for. Listen, I love New Zealand, okay? Belinda, thank you so much for joining us and being on the show. We really, really so enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, we love nerding out about camp with people. So it was so nice to hear all about Camp Purple and all of your efforts there. And I'm definitely thinking about CEO challenges that I can maybe slip to your people now.
And I gave you their names.
I mean, listen. And
you did.
We have it recorded as well. So, you know, listen, Robin and I could get creative. Maybe we'll see. We'll be nice, I promise. But no eels, no eels for sure.
Eels.
But
yeah.
Again, so lovely to chat with you. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story with us and sharing all of the great work that you're doing over at Crohn's and Colitis New Zealand. And thank you everybody else for listening, and cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Hi, this is Belinda from Crohn's and Colitis in New Zealand. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love if you could take a moment to rate and review it. And if you know someone who might enjoy it too, please share it with them.